How worried should recent retirees be about market losses and high inflation? Ooh, ooh, ooh. Jill sent me this from Morningstar. Good article. Christine Benz and Jeff Patak. I don't know. And we're gonna go with this a little bit. I think it's of interest. There's a lot to challenge on this, but let's go with it. Recent retirees are grappling with a triple threat of losing stock market, declining bond prices, and higher inflation. What does declining bond prices mean, everybody? Yes, that's right. You there in the peanut gallery. Higher bond yields. All right. This has shrunk their retirement nest eggs and reduced their spending power just as they're embarking on retirement. All right, so let's go down here. I want to show you something here real quick. We're going to go down to, let me pause it. All right, so we started with a lady at $1 million, but now with a market decline, and then she took $33,000 from her portfolio. So she took 3.3% from her portfolio in the same year for which the market declined by 18.7%. All right, so now she was taking $33,000 out. That's the initial safe withdrawal rate that Morningstar came up with, 3.3%. And now she only has $785,000 in her portfolio. But now she's taken more than $33,000. She's taken an inflation adjustment 7.7% withdrawal from her portfolio because of high inflation. So we have a market decline from $1 million to $785,000, and she's going to take an inflation adjustment $35,000 out of a portfolio that's only worth $785,000. So now she's taken is 4.45% is her distributions this year with a market decline and the inflation adjustment for expenditures. All right, so I hope that makes sense. So let's keep going. Morningstar found is that if she continues to take a inflation adjustment, distribution, she was doing 3.3% initially. With a higher inflation, 50% of the time she'd run out of money, if that makes sense. But she's only given a 5.2% rate of return and inflation at 2.2% a year. Now, the problem with the inflation at 2.2% a year going forward is that $33,000, which is now 30, what we say, 30, was down here someplace, 37 something. Yeah, right here. 35,864. All right, so 35,864 is our present value. 2.2 is our interest rate. We have 29 years left, zero payment. That means she'd be taking, so it's 35,000 today. She'd be taking 65.5 thousand in 29 years. And it'd be each and every year growing by 2.2% a year. Well, where is the evidence? Again, as I say 1,000 times a Sunday, where is the evidence that she'll be increasing her distribution amounts? I mean, just there isn't any. I mean, we can assume that. That's fine. I was working with a guy today, and we assume he's in cash. He got out of the market, so he's sitting in cash, and he's getting 3% on cash. That's not enough to cover inflation. Because I'm using a fixed inflation rate of 3% and 5.5% on healthcare. So I'm using a fixed inflation rate of basically 3.75, roughly, when all said and done. So he's only getting 3.3 because I increased our cash to 3%, and he's got a little bit of stocks and bonds. He's got to pay tax on that 3.3, and he's got to pay tax on the money he pulls out from his retirement account. So thus, he's losing from inflation, which is a fixed inflation. And I don't like to do that, but there's no scenario where you can change the inflation around in a Monte Carlo scenario that I'm aware of in financial planning software. So even there, I said, okay, well, you're not looking good, and he knows this. And I said, so at some point, he knows we're going to have to move into the markets at some regard. And so when we go from that to a 5.5% rate of return with I think it's a 12% standard deviation. Yeah, so based on any given year, he could be down 28%, and then he could be down the next year 28%, because remember, Monte Carlo is years. It doesn't care what happened the previous year. It's just running these randomized events. And if he were to be down 28% consecutively, which again has never happened, with inflation about 3.75 or so, he's going to be only a 65% probability of success. All right. That's still, in my opinion, or I think it's 69%. Well, that still looks pretty good to me because the spending is the issue. Let me show you, and I'm not going to show you him for sure. This is spending. First year retirement, he and his wife. Second, third, fourth, fifth. You see the spending goes up. All right, hold on. 62, 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 71. I think that's, I'm not sure. But anyway, is it going into his 70s and 80s? Do you think that type of spending is going to keep going? I mean, he doesn't have any debt. I mean, come on. I mean, that's the issue that we have to contend. You know, I told him, as I tell everybody, this is why you have to have a year by year financial plan review. You don't have to. The point being, he's got to, like, he just bought this house. He's just hanging up. He and his wife, just literally only been there for 4 weeks. They're just now hanging up the pictures on the wall and stuff. I said, man, wait until let's revisit in 6 months or so. You know what I'm saying? And wait until you see how things shaking out for your expenditures and whatnot. But you're going to spend you're not going to, I mean, anything can happen, but the idea that you're going to spend that kind of scratch when you get older that you're spending now is just, it's silly. There's just no evidence of this. I will stress this till I'm blue in the face. Do you really think you're going to be spending $200,000 in 10, 15 years? Now you can say, yeah, but it's adjusted for inflation. Okay, 3.75. Reduce that $200,000 by 3.75, and we can say $200,000 is our future value. 3.75 is our inflation. We'll say 15 years, zero payment. What's our current present value? That's $115,000. Do you really think you're going to spend the equivalent of $115,000 in 15 years? You know what I'm saying? I just don't. And I mean, and the reason I don't is because there isn't the evidence of that. Again, I'm going to show you from my soon to be forthcoming book, which I'm going to go to Dunkin' Donuts here in just a second and start working on again. Or not work on, but continue my work. Here's total expenditures by 45 to 54-year-old cohort. From 84 to 89, it goes up. As they get 55 to 64, it goes down. All right, so here we are. We'll say 45 to 50, 50 to 55. All right, you see that? It goes up. Then they hit 55 to 60. It goes down. And the next 10 years, it goes up. And then it goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up. But you can see that's not much of an increase in spending. Just not to the extent that we just showed you at all. And then if we actually see what happens here, hold on a second. Expenditures, $19.99 for the 55 to 64 cohort, $40,000. Total expenditures, literally 5 years later for that same cohort, but now they're 5 years older, $36,000. It's actually gone down. That's some real numbers. Real numbers. That's a spending decline, not increase. Total expenditures in 2009, in real dollars, if you're in the 65 to 74 cohort, is $42,000. 5 years later, if you're over 75 cohort, is spending $6,000 less. I mean, it's crazy, man. And we just keep right here. I mean, the spending. I get charts on top of charts on top of charts about spending going down as people age, and it's just, you know, I got not young at Morningstar, but they're using a straight spending distribution to see if you can validate that, and then on top of that, they're using a fixed inflation. Now they do a couple different things. They have a 10% inflation year one, fall by 3%. I mean, that may or may not happen. It seems fixed again. I mean, we have all these different numbers, but none of them assumes, other than the very end. I want to show you something here. How would retiree's odds have differed if she took more of less than if she took more of less? I don't get what that means. If she took more of less than the 3.3% initial withdrawal rate assured. That's not what I said. Hold on a second. So the following exhibit compares the success rates of this 10% reduction approach. So she withdrew less. But there was a real fixed rate withdrawal approach at various initial withdrawal rates. Anyway, so you can read this. Although temporary reduced spending in this matter demands sacrifice, it can help mitigate sequence of reduced risk. It can mitigate sequence of return risk. With recent retirees retaining good odds of maintaining their inflation-adjusted spending through year 30. Temporary reduction in spending. The temporary reduction in spending is fanciful too, because the permanent reduction in spending as people age is what we witness with our own eyes, man. Anyway, they're even showing you there that if you do reduce your spending temporarily, it can solidify things. 100%. Like, I got no clue what's going to happen. I just sit there and think, we're modeling bad things. And it's frustrating to me that there's no modeling of Monte Carlo for inflation. and that we're assuming that there's this continued spending each and every year adjusted with inflation. It's just the evidence is not there. All right. Love your thoughts. We'll see you